Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Toronto Ultra played their very first matchup of the Major 2 qualifiers beginning this Friday, but Scrappy himself does not seem happy at the neck jokes that have been made at his expense over the last several months. After getting cooked again by a random in-ranked player, Scrappy reports the guy. Is he charming soft? Does he have a fair point? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Firstly, couple of updates on Black Ops Gulf War is what we believe this upcoming game is going to be. We're pretty sure this year's a tryout game. Next year is either a tryout game or basically a tryout game that's going to be made by somebody else. Black Ops 2.5, people are kind of calling it, but this year is meant to be Black Ops Gulf War. I feel like we've heard about Black Ops Gulf War as a possible title for a long time. They did Black Ops Cold War, so why not, you know, run it back on this as well. Releasing October 2024 apparently, so, you know, it always flips around it seems between late October, early November. For me, the early release is always better because at least it means that, you know, the CDL or whatever comes after the CDL, we'll see in a few months whether the CDL is actually going to exist next year again or not, but I'm sure there are plans one way or the other. The earlier the game releases, the easier it is for the CDL to actually start by the end of the year, which of course is the absolute necessity, which thankfully we've had for the last couple of years. Slide Cancel and Tac Sprint are going to be in the game. This is somewhat unfortunate, I've got to say, with Tac Sprint in. I kind of wish that they'd get rid of it, but maybe it's not the end of the world. But this is what I've heard about as well, that this game is incredibly refined. Like, Treyarch haven't made a game for a long time, since Black Ops Cold War. We've had Vanguard, we've had MW2, we've had MW3 since then. So Treyarch have been cooking on this game for a major amount of time now, and from what I understand, the game is meant to be really polished and potentially incredibly good. So I'm just hoping that we have a good competitive year to balance it out as well, because if Treyarch deliver an absolute banger with this new game, and yet the CDL itself is either in shambles or there's not many events or whatever, it's going to be deeply frustrating because I truly tried not to mention Black Ops 3 here, but I just have to again, because during the Black Ops 3 season, the game was fantastic, but there were just not that many events. It was really unfortunate. It still wasn't bad compared to what we get today, but, you know, compared to Advanced Warfare, for example, where there were so many events, the next year when the CWL came around, there were far fewer events, much more online matches. There was like Orlando, there was Champs, there was a couple, and then at the early part of the year, you know, you had South Carolina, you had the Stage 1 playoffs, you had that like ESWC event, you had the Crown Plaza Invitational over in Melbourne. There were a few events that year, but it wasn't as much as it could have been. And, you know, Black Ops 3 as a season could have been way better than it was if there were like 14 events like there were in Advanced Warfare. So just hopefully they can deliver on both sides of the argument for this. Also wonder what you guys think about this, right? Because these guys won the Challengers Cup #2 the other day. We have seen previously that the best teams in Challenges quite often go on to get picked up by the league. Or at least the best players on those respective teams. That certainly happened with the FaZe Black guys after Major 1 ended. Teams wanted changes. They looked to the best Challengers teams. They picked those guys up. And a fair few of those players were guys that have had opportunities before. Kremp, Asim, for example, from that FaZe Black team, and even others that have been in the league before. They've been out to Challengers. Now they're back in. So there is a bit of, you know, a flip-flopping really, where some players go into the league, they come out again, maybe they go back in, maybe they don't get the opportunity. And some of these guys are in such a position. Spart, Fire 40, and Prolute certainly come to mind. Now, Fire 40, or maybe he just goes by Fire nowadays, I don't really know. Still goes by Fire 40 on the Twitter, but you know, let's just go with Fire. If you guys aren't aware, during the Black Ops Cold War season, Fire was into the Paris Legion team and did not have a particularly good time on, it was obviously Paris back then before it was even Vegas. Now, that was a different time, but Fire got clowned on pretty hard for his performance in a very similar way to Purge, actually, it's got to be said. Like, Fire and Purge were, you know, the memes were going around, people were roasting Fire 40, and I don't think he was, you know, a terrible player. He was just in a bad system at a bad time, and, you know, he was getting fried. There's no doubt about it. But the belief was, from that side of things, that, well, you know, Fire 40, because he's got slammed on Paris, and he was bad on that team, like, nobody's denying that. He's never going to get another chance. That was the theory, because his reputation has been tarnished so badly by that experience that even if he's good, nobody's going to give him a chance. But I feel like that might might be changing somewhat. I mean, we have seen recently some players that you might have thought wouldn't get a chance or would struggle to get a chance, you know, they're now getting back in, or at least they're getting opportunities to do so. And Fire40, maybe there's another possibility. I mean, he's frying in these clips that he shared from the cup that they eventually won, and as Parasite says, he was so good and he was done so wrong during the Cold War days. So there's an argument to say that it's taken Fire years to build back up again to the point where his reputation is, you know, not fixed or anything. People still remember Fire from Paris, but, you know, I think there's an actual possibility now that if a team wants to make a change, Fire40 could be, you know, a serious candidate, especially because he can run a sub. But of course, that second chance, if he does get it, would, you know, that is going to be the final chance, you would think. But, you know, some of these players, like GodRx, for example, he was out of the league. He was a pretty good player in the league, to be fair, but GodRx was out of the league for years. He got the chance on Ravens, and, you know, he'd earned that opportunity over years to make that actually happen. He got back into the league, and sure, it didn't work out, but, you know, he grinded for like 4 years of challenges. It pretty much took him to get back into the pro league, and there's other guys that have done the same, and I believe it can work out for them. So we'll see if that goes anywhere in the near future, but Scrappy has certainly had a few things to say. So this guy obviously can't stop getting roasted, right? It's always about the neck. I think I get it from Scrappy's side that he's got to be frustrated about this. I'd be frustrated about this as well if, you know, every time someone wants to kick him about something, and it's not just, you know, randoms or fans or whatever we'll see here in a second, but, you know, it's Scump and it's Zuma and also Nate, right? We saw what Nate said to Scrap the other day. Scump's been saying similar things for some time, and I think that Scrap, you know, he finds it funny, I would say, to at least some degree. I don't think Scrappy is really like especially charming soft. I actually think he takes it generally pretty well, but I can totally understand the frustration out, you know, people just roasting you all the time for the same thing over and over again, and it's understandable that he's going to be, you know, somewhat conscious about it, right? And this is how it tends to be. So he was in a ranked play game the other day, and I just thought this reaction was pretty hilarious. They get this victory here, 6-2, playing with Zuma. The guy on the other team says something pretty wild, like absolute violation, I'm not gonna lie, and it's, well, Scrap wasn't too happy about it. I thought it was funny what Zuma said, and then as soon as Scrappy clearly wasn't particularly happy about the comment, was like, yeah, I'm gonna report this guy. Then Zuma quite quickly came around just, oh yeah, you're actually right, Scrap, like, let me report that guy for offensive language or whatever.
Excellent work.
Oh man.
Yo, it's complete.
He's calling you like
What, bro?
you know him like that?
Did you see the Drake leak, bro?
Bro, come on, bro.
I bet you could take that with a long neck of yours, you know what I mean?
What the? Nah, that's crazy, bro. Nah, that's insane, bro. Nah, that is insane, bro.
Reporting him.
Yeah, should I report it? I'll report him too if
Reporting
you
him.
want me to.
Report him. Voice chat offensive.
Okay, I'll report.
Nah, dead ass, bro. That was fucked up, man.
Every day I meditate. I've been stretching every day. Scrappy got Scump potential, you think? For sure. Because the thing about Scrappy is that he's literally one of the best slayers to play COD ever. Ever. I've known this about Scrappy for years. He's literally been one of the best slayers for years. And that's what made Scump so fucking... Like, that's just what gave him his thing. Oh my god. Scump being such a consistent, dominant slayer was, in my opinion, the biggest reason to Scump being King Scump. The fact that he could consistently drop numbers every single game. That matters for fan attention. Fans like to see players that drop numbers. Scrappy does it really, 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 really well. And he has such a fun personality with it too. So we need this shit. I'm happy for it, man. I want to see more of it in COD. Like, we need more big personalities, right? Like, the top of the totem pole is what? Nate and Scump. And then you got, in terms of like numbers, you got me. But I want to see Octane get there. I want to see Scrappy get there. I want to see Shotzzy get there. Fuck it. Let me see Colt get there too. The more guys in COD that have huge brands, the better the scene is going to be.
Also, that clip there, though, on Doug, talking about Scump and Scrappy and other players. And to be fair to Doug, okay, he's now retired from competitive play. Doesn't mean that he's not going to still play COD and keep a bit stream, because something has got to finance this, you know, pull-up world record ambition, of course, that he's going for since his retirement. But, yeah, he compares the players that, of course, Scump was and Scrap is today. Now, of course, it's a different time now to what it was back then, really. Like, the way that the competitive Call of Duty scene existed kind of in parallel with the more casual side. Back in Black Ops 2, there was so much crossover between what more casual Call of Duty players wanted to watch on YouTube and stuff and the actual competitive side. Like, loads of people got into watching Scump's content because he was just the best content creator, not just because he was the best COD player. And things are different back then anyway in terms of what people actually watched, right? The live commentary stuff. And YouTube has changed over time, the scene has changed over time, and the kind of blow up that happened during that period is probably never going to happen again. And of course, COD isn't the same game that it was back then either. I mean, like Black Ops 2 and around times like that, the excitement and the buzz around COD as a game and as a franchise, and for very good reason, of course, because the games are spectacular, is not the same as you get today for various reasons. So I'm not sure that, you know, the next Scump is ever really going to be a thing, because I don't know if it's necessarily possible to do what Scump and Nade did back then, today, and even Doug as well, to a certain extent. Was able to capitalize on how the content ecosystem worked back then, you know, when FaZe and OpTic were coming into their own, the content houses, like all this stuff, it just doesn't happen in that way anymore. Now, not to say that there can't be massive personalities that are still the faces of the league, but it's just not going to happen in quite the same way. Like, if you want to compare, if you want to have a next Scump or a next face of the league, you're really looking at Shotzzy, right? Great content creator, phenomenal personality and player, obviously, incredibly talented, and he's an OpTic, like, kind of ticks all the boxes. But Censor does say that maybe Scrappy has a good shout for this, right? Because he's obviously an outspoken player, he's a very entertaining personality, I at least believe, and also he's really good, and I think that is the other point that Doug mentions, that people really like rooting for players that are going to fry, that they can, you know, trust are going to go in there and drop high KDs and really deliver a good performance, which is probably in large part true. So I think Scrap has a chance and Scrap has an opportunity to really, you know, take the bull by the horns here and go to the next level. And whether that's going to be on Toronto forever, whether that's going to be on another organization at some point, that's a debate. But I think it's definitely cool to see that Scrap's kind of, you know, stepped up into making content. Of course, he's streaming all the time. He's got, you know, funny moments happening all the time. He's got the YouTube channel as well now, Scrap CDL, I think it is, on the YouTube like URL. So, you know, I think definitely Doug makes an interesting point here. But just before we close out the video, because I mentioned Toronto right at the start, these are the matches for the upcoming weekends. Just to clarify for you guys, there are, I believe, 3 weekends possibly during this split where there are only 2 matches on one of the days, which is pretty rough. I think we used to have this back in Cold War as well. I believe the reason for this is that during Major 1, there were 7 qualifiers per team. It played over 4 weekends. So there were quite a few matches crammed into 4 weekends. This time it's going to be over 5 weekends of qualifiers before the Major, which means there are fewer matches per weekend. So only 8 matches here on week 1. That means 2 matches Friday, 3 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, which is pretty rough, but at least all of the matches at this point have, I would say, a great degree of interest. Most of these teams, maybe not most, but lots of these teams have made changes. Miami have a new roster, Boston have a new roster, obviously we've mentioned Miami, Surge have a new roster, Vegas have a new roster, so, and also Thieves have a new roster. So in the first weekends, there's lots of interest, and also, I mean, Miami, can they bounce back against Toronto? Toronto just won the most recent event, but can they maintain that imperious form? Miami, of course, better online than they were on LAN. Can they bounce back? And then Ravens New York on the Friday. I mean, they beat them at the Major to knock them out of the tournament, right? But Subliners need a big bounce back here. If they come in and lose to Ravens again, like, that's just going to look bad, right? So there are some interesting games. It's maybe just a bit of a shame that there aren't so many, because I'm pretty sure that of the 5 weekends, teams will play 1 match on 3 of those weekends. And it used to be the case that there'd be 3 weekends and they'd play, like, you know, 2-2-1. So there'd be 1 weekends where the teams would only play once, the other times they'd play twice. Now it's 3 of 5 the teams play once. So don't know if that makes sense, but just to show that the format ain't great is what I'm getting at. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.